Welcome, friends, it's the Movie Film Podcast. Movie Film Podcast, enjoy the show. Zachy and Brian are talking about movies. Movie Film Podcast on the radio.
Hey, Mike found the map! One-eyed Willie. I'm setting booty traps. You mean booby traps? That's what I said, booby traps. I want to go home. Don't say that. Goonies never say die.
From Steven Spielberg. The Goonies.
Do the truffle shuffle. Come on, do it.
Welcome to a movie film commentary track. My name is Zachy Hassan, but you can call me Mouth. I'm here with Brian Hall. Brian, what should people call you?
Well, I'm pushing a lot of buttons over here to record this. You can call me Data.
I like that.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like these are appropriate nicknames given that we are going to be watching The Goonies today.
I say this every now and then, but this is one of those ones I can't believe we haven't done already.
And let me just say, aren't you glad there are the ones we haven't done?
Yeah. Well, especially ones like this that I know early on we were doing ones that were real personal touchstones for us. So we had a lot of knowledge already in our brains and a lot of passion. Yeah. And then, we'll get to ones where it's like, oh, well, we'd like to dig into this one. So then I have to go and do some research on it. Mm-hmm. But this is one of those ones I was telling you, like, I know this backwards and forwards. I don't even need to revisit this. Like
that's great because you have definitely seen this one more than I have.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to you're going to be the Mikey. You're going to take us on this journey.
Yeah.
I hopefully I won't be too much of a Fratelli screwing things up.
No, I gotta say, I mean, I know the movie really, really well, and I knew a lot of the behind the scenes stories, but I went really like deep diving on this one, watching videos, uncovering pictures from fanzine sorts of things back in the day of deleted scenes. Like there's the deleted scenes I think most fans are kind of aware of, but there were ones I had never even seen before. So I've got a treasure trove, so to speak, of things to share on this one.
Well, whatever you've uncovered, I'm sure it will be good enough.
I just took a sip of coffee. That's a bad idea.
I was like, like the song. See?
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Okay, so and by the way, the timing cannot be appropriate because as we are recording this, we are heading into the 40th anniversary weekend of when this movie was released.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
Kind of crazy. So with that in mind, you are more than welcome to join us as we celebrate 40 years of the Goonies. If you want to watch along with us, you can certainly do that. If not, between the two of us, I suspect we'll have more than enough to keep your ear holes engaged.
Mm-hmm.
That sounded gross. As I said that, I was like, I don't know. That's the way to phrase that.
Yeah.
I've said it now, so it's there. It exists.
Right.
But I'm excited. So with that in mind, we'll do the usual thing. We'll hit play on 3. Brian, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, so here we go. 1, 2, 3, play.
Yes.
This is the good stuff.
This is the good stuff. This was so okay. I have a very visceral memory of watching this for the first time when I was a kid. So this came out in 1985. And so I was a little young. I saw my first movies in the theater in 1985, but maybe like 2 years later or something on VHS, I was at a sleepover. And I remember them putting on the Goonies, and I remember this moment where you're seeing this skull, against like a black backdrop, and then the camera goes into it. There's no sound, there's no music, and then we just open in this jail. Mm-hmm. And just as I was young enough still, like 7 or 8 or something, to still be like kind of scared a little bit by movies and not knowing what to expect next. And I remember having that feeling, this unease, but in the most delightful way. Like I was uncomfortable, but leaning forward. And I just feel like that is one of the things that this movie is so successful at. And that's why it's endured for so long, right? This is a kid's movie.
Yeah.
But it is not crafted like a kid's movie. It's not overly lit. It's not trying to gloss over the rougher edges or make things a little, You know what I mean? Like we'll open with a guy faking a hanging in a jail cell.
Yeah.
And
Well,
they trust that like kids are gonna. Yeah.
Kids should learn. People can escape from prison. They should know that.
But that's what I like. They're not worried to rattle kids a little bit, and that's why I think we ate it up so much.
That plus all the cussing. Don't you love seeing kids cuss?
Dude, I will never forget. Again, that's the other thing too. I mean, the one I remember out of many of them, most is Chunk here watching the thing. And it throws you off guard seeing someone so young swear like that in a movie because you're sort of used to the Disney thing, like Fly the Navigator or something, right?
You're like, this changes everything.
Yeah. But it's funny because that is about the age, like 10, 11, something like that, or at least that I remember, where you're sort of like trying swearing on for size. You know what I mean? Like you hear these words, and then I have a very specific memory of being at this like old fishing hole kind of area near where I grew up, and like saying shit, and like being aware that I was saying it, and being like, I'm trying it out. Like, am I a swearing guy? Let's see.
Is this gonna be my personality?
Yeah.
I look at Joey Pants here, Joe Pantoliano, as what is he, Frankie? I forget which Fratelli is which.
I don't know. I just know him as the Fratellis. Yeah,
the collective Fratelli.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he has a face that he needed to age into a little bit.
Yeah. Well, it makes me think of Risky Business.
Yeah.
You see him in that, and you're like, interesting. Like, there's something here. Well, maybe it's because I saw that later in life, and so I am used to older Joey Pants.
Cosmo Renfro, Joey Pants. That's our baseline.
Yeah, and of course, Cypher and in the Matrix and whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, he really. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Some people, when they get older, they get this like wizenedness, extra wrinkles, and it makes them look like that's the guy. You're gonna like work forever now because we like that face.
That's right. So I got to give it up to my man Richard Donner.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
One of the greatest to ever do it, Brian.
Absolutely.
This was 7 years after Superman, and it was his first big budget thing. He did a couple smaller things in between, but you realize, man, that was a big gap. And then this is the same year that Lady Hawk came out. So he had a twofer in 85.
I've never seen Lady Hawk.
Lady Hawk is an interesting one. It I don't love it, but it's quaint now,
Yeah. Well, his filmography is very interesting. I mean, you have The Omen, right? Then you have Superman, and you have the Goonies, right? Like of course, then Lethal Weapon and
a couple of them Lethal Weapons.
Yeah. Here it is. The milkshake. Oh shit. It like really, yeah, as a kid, you're like, ooh, we can do that.
And I was going to mention, so Richard Donner, he doesn't dumb it down. He's not making a kiddie movie. I think that helps. And of course, Dave Grusin, who does the music, he doesn't give it a kiddie movie score.
I mean, this is a killer score, and it was used in trailers for years and years.
Oh yeah.
I was actually looking it up, like Inner Space, Scrooged, and he went. I was curious what else he had done. He did Heaven Can Wait, On Golden Pond, Fabulous Baker Boys, The Firm. I was like, wow, it's pretty varied.
Yeah.
I have to say also, so this opening here where they're at Cannon Beach in Oregon, and Haystack Rock is we just saw it on screen, and at the end we'll see the pirate ship sail, I guess supposedly out of it.
Right.
So this is pre-internet days when I went and visited Oregon as a 10-year-old or 11-year-old, and my dad grew up in Oregon, so we went to Cannon Beach. I saw Haystack Rock, and I was like, wait a minute, like it just was, and it was one of those things because I couldn't confirm it, right? And so then I took a picture of it. Or I'm saying I couldn't like Google it in that era, and so I took a picture of it, and then I remember putting the movie on and holding it up and being like, I was there. Yeah, I thought I recognized that. I was. So that was kind of cool. And this has become Astoria, Oregon, where this takes place and where it was filmed, has become a huge Goonie fan tourist destination.
Yeah,
right?
that's
I mean, obviously the house, a lot of people visit the house. And for a while, it was run by some people who didn't care for that. Understandably, because apparently some people were leaving litter everywhere and walking right up to their porch and acting kind of like jerks.
Is that still the case? Like, is it Is it like the McFly house where it's just completely privately owned, or is it now?
Well, they sold it, I want to say, sometime during the pandemic, maybe like 2021, 2, 3, something like that. And they fans bought it, and I think they're aiming to turn it into a museum.
That's great.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
Yeah.
And then the town throws like Goonies. I think they have a Goonies day. That's what I love, is they embrace this, and it draws a lot of people out there, and people from the film have gone up there to celebrate it.
Yeah,
it's kind of fun.
Earlier, I was thinking in my head, I was like, oh, did Jerry Goldsmith do the music for this? And I was realizing, like, I got all my wires twisted, because Jerry Goldsmith did the music for Gremlins, which was the previous year's Steven Spielberg Presents movie.
Mm-hmm.
And he also did the music for The Omen, which Richard Donner directed. And so, all got twisted into a knot. But that's kind of the fascinating thing about the mid 80s, which really was like all these movies that I jumbled together in my mind, like the Steven Spielberg Presents era.
I was going to bring that up. I mean, we have to call out, got the Truffle Shuffle here.
The Truffle Shuffle, which, by the way, if you look at Jeff Cohen real closely, he's got chicken pox all over his stomach.
Yeah, so he got chicken pox and was afraid to tell anybody because he didn't want to be left out of the movie. And by the way, so I want to get back to the Spielberg. Of him. Very chunk. He is an incredible little actor.
He is. He's great.
Well, they all are, but he is just really, really remarkable and one of a kind. And I was looking at the ages.
I don't know if you saw it right there. It says Rube G on the side of the chicken coop.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Rube
Goldberg.
Which is this whole elaborate device. It's a very Rube Goldberg-esque thing.
There's so much like texture and nuance to this film, isn't there? I mean, just they don't have to have the door open like that.
Yep.
And just, I don't know, the scrappiness. And I love this scene. It's not like, okay, let's have everyone sit around the table and just talk about, oh, there's stuff in your attic. Oh, let's go up to the attic. It's like feeding goldfish, and they knock over that Michelangelo's David statue, and you get the whole bit with the penis falling off, and which of course I found hysterical as a kid, because that's like something that would make me giggle, but I wouldn't feel comfortable giggling around my parents with that kind of thing. But that's why this movie's so perfect, is you watch this with your friends, and this is what you giggle at, That's
right.
Wait, going back. Oh, no. So I just, ages. I just want to call out, all of them are about 13 or so, and Brolin is 17. But Jeff Cohen, he's 10.
Amazing.
10 years old. He's such a talented little actor.
Well, and of course, what I appreciate is that Jeff Cohen, tapped out. He's like, I'm done. And he became a lawyer, and he's very good at it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And he represents Ke Huy Quan now. Which,
come on. Goonies truly never say die.
Incredible. Yeah, I mean, Quan thanked him in his Oscar speech, his Goonie brother. It's like so lovely. This whole thing, it's so like putting the penis bit back upside down, and just the way they talk over one another, and he steps out of his chair, so he goes in his chair. There's just so much like kid energy in this.
Well, that's the funny thing, because definitely when you see this as a kid, you relate it to your own life, and yet that was something that many critics just had a really hard time with.
Mm-hmm.
There was one critic for a newspaper, forgive me, I don't remember who it was, but they said something to the effect of, as to Goonies, I couldn't appreciate it because there were a bunch of kids talking the whole time. They weren't in the theater, they were in the movie.
That's hilarious.
It's a good line.
It's true.
But it's like, well, that's just how kids are when they get together,
Yeah, I mean, man, it's so I have so many thoughts that are struggling to get through the door, that they're cramming into each other, and none of them are coming through the actual door because I have so much to talk about. But I've heard that as sort of a complaint about this movie. So I've mentioned on the podcast many, many years ago, I mean, this is Citizen Kane for the 80s generation, right? Like this, well, maybe not Citizen Kane, but it's like one of the most beloved things we have from that time that we've carried with us. Right. And so I've only known it as something that is beloved. And I went on a walk one time with my friend's dad, who is a screenwriter and a cinephile. And I said something about the Goonies, and he just went, ugh. And I was like, what? And he goes, oh, I hate that movie. Wow. And that was literally the first time I had ever heard someone disparage this movie. But he's a generation or two older than me.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. I mean, as a kid, I liked the busyness and the talking over one another and the way that they're all wisecracking and cutting each other off and shoving each other for attention and stuff. But if you were a grown-up, I could see that being like really obnoxious. So, I don't know. I think the thing that makes it work for so many people, I can see that being a little bit of a turnoff for the wrong crowd.
I think even Siskel and Ebert critiqued that aspect,
You know what's funny? I did look that up. So it has a 77% on Rotten Tomatoes. Just, I was curious. And both Siskel and Ebert, I can't say their names in a different order. Siskel and Ebert both gave it 3 out of 4 stars, which I thought was kind of
interesting,
sort of intuitive. They were like, all right, maybe there's some, this is nailing what it is trying to do for its audience. I think is what they recognized.
Yeah. By the way, we have to give props to Mary Ellen Trainor, a perennial 80s presence.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, the late great.
Die Hard. Well, of course, she worked a lot with Richard Donner in the.
Yep, she's in all 4 Lethal Weapons. She's in Ghostbusters 2, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Scrooge, Monster Squad. She's in a ton of Zemeckis films because she was married to him for a while.
That's right. Yeah. So I was thinking about how, pretty much everybody, all of the kid actors in this, those who chose to keep acting have gone on to have pretty decent careers.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, I think Josh Brolin, probably the most successful Goonie, right?
I would, yeah. Like in this moment, certainly.
At this, right? I mean, everybody, like Sean Astin, he's had a great career. Obviously, Ke Huy Quan is an Academy Award winner, which we couldn't say, 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. So everybody's doing fine, but it's like, man, Josh Brolin, this is his first movie.
Yeah.
And he's great. And that was the other thought I had is you've got such a great range of ages represented that when you watch it first, you can relate to, Chunk or Data, and then, Mikey and eventually Brand,
Mm-hmm.
And you got everybody covered. And I was just watching it with my kids the other day, and my second kid, he's as old as Brand is in this movie. And I'm like, he was younger than Chunk when we watched this the first time.
That's amazing. I saw a little fact where it said that Sean Astin, Josh Brolin, Ke Huy Quan all experienced career comebacks after appearing in a hit film that won Best Picture. So you have Lord of the Rings, eventually with Return of the King, No Country for Old Men, and Everything Everywhere All at Once. Those are quite the comebacks.
There you go. Hadn't thought about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Sean Astin too. This was like his first big acting job.
Yeah, right. He's son of who's it? John Astin.
John Astin, Gomez Addams, and the Riddler. And he's
for the
really
Riddler. I forgot about that.
Yeah, I think Frank Gorshin was holding him up for money on the '60s show, so they got John Astin was a ringer. That's funny. No, but Sean Astin is terrific in this.
Oh yeah, he's a natural, and he just feels like the perfect kid to sort of center all his friends around. He's very earnest and sweet and scrappy, but determined. He's perfect.
Yeah, see, so I was trying to think in my mind when I first saw this movie, because I know for sure I did not see it when I was living in Saudi Arabia.
Mm-hmm.
And when I watched it, it had to have been after I saw Toy Soldiers, because I was like, oh, he's the guy from Toy Soldiers.
Ah, yeah.
Right, so I think like 92. I must have seen it on like WPWR the summer that we moved back from Saudi Arabia.
Okay, yeah.
I'm pretty sure,
Mm-hmm.
And so that I feel like I caught it at just the right age. Like, a little bit older, I don't think it would have worked for me the same way.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I've had that experience too, where you meet someone you work with who never saw it, and you're like, oh, who's close to your age, and you're like, you gotta, this is, the story of our generation, and then they watch it and they're like, I mean, it's okay. Yeah, I mean, maybe that's the thing. You kind of have to be sort of close. And I don't know, I think there may be something about existing with this film in this moment also, because a lot of what I really loved about it was, it set my imagination on fire. Like watching these kids go on an adventure that could possibly happen in my neighborhood
Yeah.
made me want that to happen. Like I remember influenced by this movie, packing up my backpack with like cheap plastic binoculars and a compass and, with my brother and riding through our neighborhood and going through fields, kind of hoping to stumble on some sort of adventure like this. I mean, I think that was more possible in that day and age.
I think you're describing countless excursions the kids who watched this movie went on.
Totally.
Right? Anybody who grew up with this movie at some point got on their bike with their buddies and just set off looking for adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With Cyndi Lauper, playing in their head.
Yeah, totally.
I think this gets to something that Spielberg was very good at figuring out. And obviously he did it with E.T. It's a story about the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And the adults, adults exist within it, but the story is told through the perspective of the kids. And when you think about it, that's what we wanted when we were young, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember a critique somebody said of Batman and Robin as characters, not the movie Batman and Robin, but it's like, they put Robin in there as the person for the kids to relate to. And it's like, well, I don't want to be Robin. I want to be Batman,
Mm.
And I personally disagree with that because I would be happy to be Robin. Minus the origin of Robin, mind you.
Sure. Right.
Minus the circumstances that led to him being Robin. But
right. And maybe a cooler outfit.
That too, pants. That would be nice.
Yeah, pants.
But this is something Spielberg just got instinctively, and whether we're talking about this or Gremlins, not too much before, or obviously Back to the Future this year, right? It's that same. It's like it puts the focus on the kid, and the adults are the tertiary characters.
Yeah, and I love that they're not worried about getting home in time,
Mm-hmm.
or they'll be in trouble or something.
Right.
Not that that's the worst thing in the world, but yeah, we're living in their reality here. We're not worried about the parents or homework or any of those sorts of things I don't want to think about while I'm on an adventure.
Right. So what was the origin of this? Now, it started with Spielberg.
Yeah. So, Spielberg and Chris Columbus, who wrote this, they had a good relationship, I think, after working on Gremlins, right? Because Gremlins, I think, was a spec script that Chris Columbus wrote. Well, we just covered that recently on our Gremlins commentary. And so Spielberg had an idea.
And Gremlins would have been about a year prior to this. Yeah,
it came out in 1984.
Yeah.
Interestingly, we've covered this, but inspired the PG-13 rating.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, this movie is not rated PG-13. Not that it would be, but I don't know. I guess it's not as violent. But
they needed one F-bomb to get it, to give it. They needed a chunk to say the F word, and then that would have done it.
But yeah, apparently Chris Columbus had the idea for this. He grew up in a factory town in Ohio where there wasn't a lot to do, and he would go out and explore abandoned coal mines in the summertime. And I don't know, just he used. Well, I should say Spielberg did have the original nugget.
Right.
Which was like, what do kids do for adventure on a rainy day? I think is what his thing was. And then that's what Chris Columbus was bringing, this whole small town, factory town thing, which we're actually witnessing here, right? Where these kids live in the Goondocks, and these rich developers are going to basically buy them out and tear down their houses. So you can see maybe, Columbus brought some inspiration from his childhood into this and just letting his imagination go with it. And that was just that was the second collaboration with them, Gremlins, Goonies. And then after that, Chris Columbus had the idea for Young Sherlock Holmes, which Spielberg also produced. So it sounds like they were collaborating for a while. They had a run there.
And clearly a little bit of Spielberg's mojo rubbed off on Chris Columbus insofar as what he brought to the Harry Potters and stuff. Very, very Spielberg-y.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I want to call it this moment here. I mean, this is such a sweet moment. Even as a kid.
I was going to say.
Yeah, so these greedy developers are basically like, yeah, you're gonna buy your house. Is your dad home? We got to give him these contracts to destroy your world. And so then we get this moment of Mikey.
I love this.
It's so sweet, like wistfully standing on his porch. His world is about to crumble. And his brother, who's been kind of punching him and punching his arm, for the whole movie so far, comes out, sees how sad his brother is, and then they hug.
Isn't that great? You know what? It reminds me of Elliot and Michael.
Yeah, good call. It's nice when movies can kind of nail that sibling thing. You beat on each other a little bit, but at the end of the day, you've got each other's backs.
That's right. Yeah.
Or at least that's the aspirational version of it.
Well, and I love that Mikey's hugging him, and then, he kind of keeps hugging him, and Brand kind of drags him like he's in a headlock,
Exactly. It's very brotherly.
Very brotherly, exactly,
Yeah, and I love that the movie has the patience for it.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of movies recently, even you and I have been talking about, I keep saying, I feel like I'm watching a movie at 1.5 speed, because it feels like the filmmakers don't trust me to care.
Yeah.
Or like I'll look away. And you know what? Maybe I won't, but maybe other people will. I don't know. But it's cool that this movie invests in its characters like it does.
Well, the fact that it's a quarter of the runtime almost before we're fully on the adventure.
Yeah.
And
yeah. So we should call it the Cyndi Lauper thing.
Cyndi Lauper getting her. Now she was not a fan of this song, which I find very amusing.
Oh, really?
Yeah. First of all, it was already written, and they just tacked on the Goonies R to the title.
Oh, so she had this song, and they're like, "Hey, say Goonies like 10 times in it."
Exactly.
Really? Well, I can understand. That'd be a little annoying.
And she wouldn't play it at her live shows. Like she was just not a fan of the song.
I mean, it is a bop. You got to give her.
It absolutely is.
Yeah, but it's funny because it is one of those things that's a little weird where they like say the name of the movie in the song as you're watching the movie. Like it's kind of it's a bold move.
I think like the music video, the movie should have had Captain Lou Albano and the Iron Sheik. And,
I was gonna say yes,
Roddy Piper. Yeah.
I mean, could it be? Wait, I got to call out. This is I'm going to hit you so hard when you wake up, your clothes are going to be out of style.
That's so funny.
Great, so good. So they're taking the air out of Brand's tires. So
I was going to say, you know what I love is they just deflate the tires. They don't puncture the tires.
Right.
I was like, that's nice because you respect. Like a kid would be like, that'll create a problem.
Yeah.
A kid would recognize it. I also love that the maid is like she's scared to death that this is another weird sex thing.
Yes, because Mouth was saying that there's sexual torture devices in the attic and drugs in all the drawers, and now she's seeing Brand like tied up on the floor in a chair, and she's like freaking out. I have to call it out real quick. There's so much to talk about. The Cyndi Lauper thing. Oh, I don't want to talk about the dad here too. That video apparently is like 12 minutes long.
It's super long. Yeah.
And Steven Spielberg is in it.
Yep.
Right. And the Bengals play pirates in it. And like you said, there's a bunch of 80s pro wrestlers in it. She fights an octopus, which is related to a deleted scene from later in the film. It's just very of its time. Right.
See, now Brand, you'd think he would say, like what would take more time, riding this girl's bike or just filling up his tires? But
that's right.
But he thinks they punctured his tires.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. I love my tires, my new tires. Yeah. This is one of those movies I can hear. I don't even need the closed captioning. So there's a deleted scene we should call out here where now we're watching them. They escaped. Brand, they think he's tied up, and they're on the road, and they're going to go to that sort of hilltop. But there's a deleted scene where they stop in a convenience store, and apparently this scene would be in TV edits because they would take certain things out. I don't know what or why, but we've talked about this. When they shorten the running time for television, sometimes they'll put deleted scenes in just so it'll be long enough to even fit in a 2-hour time slot. So anyway, one of the scenes that they would reinsert into Goonies was they go into a convenience store and they bump into Troy, the bully, who takes the map away from them. And
he lights it like a bong.
Yeah, he pretends it's like a joint or something. He rolls it up and then he lights it. And that's why it has all the burned edges.
Or like a joint, not a bong. Sorry, I don't know my drug paraphernalia.
Yeah.
I meant joint. Sorry.
But then Brand goes in there and sticks up for his brothers. He's like, only I can beat up on him.
Mm-hmm.
And so now so that's gone. And now we have this scene where Troy's catching up with Brand, and he, holds onto his arm, basically.
Where he tries to murder Brand.
It's really kind of dark when you think about it. Like
you're like the other version of this, and then they found Brand's body.
I know.
Impaled on a tree,
Yeah. And, but anyway, this is retaliation for Brand sticking up to him in the convenience store, but that scene was chopped.
So now he's just a dick. He doesn't need motivation to be a dick. He's just.
I mean, I don't think you miss it. Yeah, he's just an a-hole. And
I love the E.T.-esque aspect of him
flying on his bike. Yeah. It's funny though. Going back to the Chris Columbus Spielberg of it all, this is like an interesting moment for Steven Spielberg, right? Because he's like obviously like a wunderkind at this point, and he's got like Jaws, Close Encounters, and then he had that misfire with 1941.
Actually, real quick, pause for a second. Look, there's like 3 layers of effects here, which is kind of amazing, right? You've got the coin on the front. They are composited onto the back. It's nothing but visual effect.
Yeah, that's kind of true. It kind of works. I wonder if it's because it was a tricky like focal points that they all wanted in one frame.
You wouldn't have been able to do that.
Yeah,
live, I don't think. But we know, if nothing else, we know J.J. Abrams is clearly a fan of the Goonies, based on The Rise of Skywalker.
Well, yeah, I remember bringing that up where I was like, this doubloon kind of makes a little bit more sense, like
rather than Ochi of Bastoon's dagger.
Wow. I feel like if I could hand you like a cookie or a gold star right now, I would.
I just watched it a week ago. So
okay.
Anyway, sorry, you were saying.
No, but I love this too. Like them skipping toward the cabin here and goofing around. And
you picture Richard Donner kind of pulling his hair out behind the camera. Like,
well, that's what it sounds like was actually happening.
Right.
You can watch some of the behind the scenes and you can see him just like, just kind of like trying to wrangle all these kids. But at the same time, them driving you crazy is the gold. That's right. Capturing that is the gold. There's so much. All right, I'll go back to the thing I was talking about, but I have to call out. I love this. So now because of the doubloon, it led them, the Rock, the Thing lined up, and then this kind of defunct looking restaurant. And so now they're spying on the restaurant. Like, well, what does this have to do with anything? And they're seeing someone carry out like a garbage bag, right? And they know something sinister is going on, and someone's like, drug dealers? And then Data's like, nah, drug dealers would never be caught in those polyester rags. Even as a kid, I thought that was hilarious. So anyway, they're about to head inside. I'm like so debating. I have like 5 things I want to talk about.
Well, finish what you were saying before.
Let me go back. Okay, so
I interrupted you.
No. So Spielberg, it's interesting, right? Like, yeah, he's on this roll, right? He's got Jaws, Close Encounters, got his 1941 misfire, but then he does Raiders of the Lost Ark, E.T., and now he like runs the world, right? And then Temple of Doom. And then he goes on an interesting run personally. It's like he wants to, I think people think of him as sort of the roller coaster guy. And so he goes on and makes Color Purple and Empire of the Sun and Always. And I think he wants to sort of prove like, well, I can do this too.
Yeah.
Right. So it's interesting. We associate Spielberg with the 80s, but his 80s run, aside from Indiana Jones films and E.T., it's not exactly what we remember. But I think what people mistakenly remember is like, oh, Steven Spielberg. Yeah. Back to the Future. Yeah. Or people, you know what I mean? People not like,
or Goonies or Gremlins or
but like Gremlins. Oh yeah, Steven Spielberg. Goonies, Steven Spielberg. Poltergeist, Steven Spielberg. And he obviously had a huge hand in those films, and we can get into that too. Sean Astin is like, oh yeah, Steven Spielberg directed this scene. He directed this scene in the Goonies. But right, he is so tied to so many movies in the 80s that when you say Back to the Future, the first name you think of probably is Steven Spielberg.
That's interesting.
Which is a whole other separate sort of thing. I mean, now he still produces the Transformers and those sorts of things, but we don't think of it in the same way as we did.
That's true. That's a really good point.
Right? This is like an interesting moment.
Yeah. Like Men in Black. He's a producer in all those movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just funny how many people do think of these as Steven Spielberg movies. You know, and I think that's what adds to his whole sort of King of the 80s thing.
That's fascinating. Wow. I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah. But I mean, obviously I think the kids are screwing around a lot too, but like, this is a great script. And, and Chris Columbus deserves his flowers for that. And of course, Donner, the perfect execution in this. And of course, Spielberg for giving it the perfect sheen,
Yeah.
He had a vision for this and he made sure that it got there. I remember, this kind of like edgy stuff, like her gonna pull out a switchblade and it's cut off his tongue. But this is one of those scenes too, I think you could use as an example of what probably drives people crazy because they're being so noisy.
Yep.
Even as they're just like being scared, they're all like, like over one another. But that's why it's so funny to me.
Corey Feldman too, by the way. He was in Gremlins, and he does this, and then really, I mean, it launched him for a while. I mean, he was in Stand By Me. He was terrific in that.
Yep.
He's Donatello, of course.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting when he was really young, because I mean, in Gremlins he looks very young, but he auditioned for E.T. He was going to play. I don't remember if it was a friend or a bully to Elliot. Seems like it'd be a friend because he'd be too young.
Yeah.
But they cut that character out at the screenplay stage, but Spielberg was like, "There's something to this kid," and then he brings him back for Gremlins. He brings him into Goonies. Obviously he really liked Feldman, and then Feldman went. So he's got this Spielberg run, and then like you said, Stand By Me. But then there's the Corey's run that will come shortly after this.
Right. License to Drive.
Yeah. Dream a Little Dream, all that stuff. Lost Boys.
Oh, Lost Boys. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I was thinking, like, in terms of Spielberg, like, blockbuster movies, you have Temple of Doom in 84, and you have Last Crusade in 89. What did he do in between that would be part of that, in that vein?
That's what I'm saying, right? Like,
right?
I mean, Color Purple, which got some Oscar recognition, but not really for him. I don't think it did what he was kind of hoping it would do. Empire of the Sun, which both of those are Color Purple is very good. Empire of the Sun is pretty darn good, I would say. Yeah,
it's not a movie I can really rewatch a ton, but I appreciate it.
Same. Yeah. And then Always, right? And then Always and Last Crusade came out the same year. But
wow, okay,
yeah, right. Like that's what I'm saying. Like the 80s aren't exactly the way we think of them.
That's fascinating
for him.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, of course, Hook, which...
Hook was 91.
And then Jurassic Park, and then he kind of...
That's it. Papa Spielberg after that.
Well, yeah, but then it's like, it sort of, in a way, like kickstarts it. Well, I'd say Last Crusade, your feelings may vary on Hook, but like Last Crusade, Hook, Jurassic Park, Schindler's List, Lost World, Private Ryan. Like, then he goes like on another tear.
Right, but we go. I think Jurassic marks the shift from blockbuster Spielberg, to Papa Spielberg. Like 93,
I see what you're saying, Papa
93.
Spielberg. Yeah,
right?
For sure.
Because you get a few vestigial. You got your Lost World and your Crystal Skull, and but like he goes down a different lane.
100%. Yeah, I was just talking about dominance.
Yeah.
But yeah. Wait. By the way, so Sloth. Sloth is a choice. I swear, as a kid, I never questioned him.
Yeah.
And as I got older, I was like, like what an interesting choice. And I would love to have a transcript of the thought process that happened between the creatives on this. And like, Sloth, it's kind of sad, really. I mean, he seems like I guess a child that Ma Fratelli dropped a couple times.
His name is Lotney, by the way, which I don't know if you caught that.
No.
Lotney Fratelli. I think maybe that's in the book. Like, I don't know why I know that, but
that's pretty good.
Yeah.
But
well, I think it speaks to like how innocent kids are, you know?
Yeah.
And you know, this idea of like Chunk and Sloth find each other because they are both the put upon, you know, the runt, if you will, of their respective gangs.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, and so I think that's what's absolutely perfect is you know, at the end he's like, I love you, Sloth, I love you, Chunk, and you believe both of them,
and it's like really sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that, and I like too where, I mean, thinking of it again from a kid's point of view, in a way, the way that he's introduced, this silhouette who's like bellowing and yelling in this room and chained up, he's kind of a monster figure to them.
Yeah.
But then he becomes a Goonie.
Yeah.
You know, they bring him in, and there's something really sweet about that.
He's the old man Marley of this movie.
Yeah, well put. Yeah. Interesting. And Chris Columbus.
There you go, right?
Yeah. That is, you were talking about how there's something for everybody here. I mean, yeah, you do have some teenage business here, you know, with Brand and Andy and some like, you know, teen romance kind of stuff. This is really funny.
What's interesting to me is that the movie didn't lean too much into the, you know, the dynamic of like the rich people versus the regular people.
Yeah.
That would make it more of a kind of an Animal House type thing, you know?
Sure, yeah.
Like you could see that version, right? Where, you know, Troy is the son, his dad is that douchebag, and, you know,
mm-hmm.
And you don't really need that stuff. Like that's what gives you your story.
I agree.
Right?
I agree. Yeah. You know, the more you read about the deleted scenes and some of the ideas they had, you do realize they honed in on, they perfectly calibrated this.
Yeah.
To give it, you know, to make it magic. Where, I mean, getting ahead of it a little bit, but there's when they're banging on the pipes later and things are going haywire at that country club, there was a deleted scene that was actually shot where through messing with the pipes and everything, they accidentally let all these animals out of a zoo.
Mm-hmm.
And have you heard about this?
They have gorillas are driving the car and stuff.
Yeah, so these two gorillas get out, and there was a whole runner through the entire movie of these gorillas running around the town, stealing Troy's car, driving the car around town, and it being played for laughs. And then eventually they get caught at the end by the police. And that just doesn't feel right.
Yeah, exactly.
To this. That puts it into cartoon territory. And you can understand at the phase where you're just spitballing and saying all the funny ideas that could happen in this. Like, okay, well, let's try that. Let's try that out. Let's see how that plays.
But they actually shot that.
They did. That's amazing to me. By the way, Spielberg shot that. He directed all those scenes because he was so passionate about it. He was passionate about the gorilla stuff.
Look at that. Even Steven Spielberg can be wrong sometimes.
See, I find that really encouraging.
Yeah.
Right. But that's the thing. You know, they talk about writing happens and, you know, there's writing the script, there's the writing phase when you're shooting the movie, and there's a writing phase in the editing room. And just because they shot it, they realized it didn't fit, and they cut it down to what felt right, and that's why we have the classic we have. Like now, we could be cringing every time gorillas show up, but they they had the right instincts to.
See, I think what we needed was a bit where before they go into the chimney there, where Andy's like, I can't go into the chimney because, you know, last Christmas my dad.
Right.
Oh wait, we did that already.
That'd be like Spielberg in Raiders of the Lost Ark. He had that bit with Tote and the hanger, the coat hanger.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Device. But he tried that in 1941 first.
Yep, that's
that
right.
Gag, and it didn't land. And he was so convinced it was funny, he did it again in Raiders of the Lost Ark, and now we all know it, and it is funny.
And he was right about that.
Yeah.
That's interesting, right? Like, I think there's something about the joke working because it's in a not comedy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The incongruousness of it showing up there makes it funny.
And he lucked out in a way that the first attempt was in a movie most people haven't seen or have only seen once and don't remember very well.
That's really funny.
Oh, this is so funny. The way that they taunt Chunk, I mean, it's really mean, but like the results are always hilarious. Like this with the knocking over the sparklets thing. I got it. I got it.
Every group of friends had the Chunk.
Yeah.
Like that's, I mean, you think like this, I don't know. When I watch this, I'm like, who was I in my, I definitely wasn't the Mikey. Right. It was probably the mouth, like.
Yeah. I love it's such a funny line though. Hope it's not a deposit bottle. I mean, he's like this little 10-year-old comedian. He
was improvising a lot of this stuff.
He's a natural. And I saw these clips of him on talk shows and behind the scenes. And I mean, he was like a total ham, like a really genuinely funny ham. Like he was so talented. See, this is like the kind of thing you wanted to find when you were a kid. Like, what if I went into an abandoned restaurant and then there was like a secret tunnel?
That's the thing. Yeah, you never found that. You would go into the woods. You'd mostly just find old like Playboys and stuff.
Yeah, right.
Which was fine, by the way.
Right. Well, it's funny. There's the Kevin McAllister age where you're going through Buzz's trunk and you're like, no clothes on anyone, sickening. And then you like turn like 13, 14 and you're like, adventure, I'll stay here. I'll stay here with Buzz's trunk.
It's hilarious.
$50 bill.
See, Kiwi Kwan too, right? I mean, obviously he's great in Temple of Doom. He's great in this, and then it's like the work just started drying up, and what a shame that is,
I know we loved him then. He comes back, and everyone's like, yeah, we love him now. Like, yeah, think of all we missed in the middle.
I know because he did continue to act into the early '90s, right? Because he was in. Oh damn it! What's the
Encino Man?
In Encino Man, right? But even before that, he was on Head of the Class. So, but it's just like at some point the work went away, and he talked about like it's just the opportunities for Asian actors weren't what they are, and so thank goodness that's opened up.
I know. Well, and then he follows up Everything Everywhere All at Once with Love Hurts.
Oh, right.
Which didn't perform, and I this is my sentiment. I know you agree, and I've heard other people say this too, where it's like you want to scream at Hollywood, no, it's not him. It's the movie. Like, we love him. Keep hiring him.
I have a feeling he'll continue to appear in stuff.
I hope so.
I remember him talking about how he watched Crazy Rich Asians and just started crying because of like, this is the movie I was waiting for, Well,
I love that it motivated him.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is another one of those things that was kind of edgy as a kid, like this corpse with a bullet hole in his head falling, and the way that it falls on Chunk when they shove him into the freezer, it's so horrifying. Like they're like cheek to cheek, but it's also hilarious. Man, we're gonna love on Donner the whole way through here, but just the way that he blocks these kids. Yeah, and he finds a way for all these kids to be in frame, but be doing something interesting, and the way they got their arms around each other, and the heights, and it's just so perfect.
It's such a great, like, I've said this before about Richard Donner. He was really plug and play in terms of you could put him into any genre, and he would be able to play in that genre. He did Scrooged, and he's able to do that kind of movie,
right?
And then obviously, the Lethals, and this is him emulating Spielberg.
Yeah.
And I think there's something to that, right? Like Richard Donner was somebody who continued working almost until the end of his life, right? And there's value in a director who can just bring their skill and their talent without necessarily imprinting the movie.
It's interesting though. He's definitely, there's Spielberg in the air here, but I love that it doesn't feel like someone copying Spielberg.
Yeah, no, I
like
agree.
his.
I mean, I think it's a marriage of their styles.
An incredible marriage of their styles, and I think that's something subconscious. It's something I adore now, but as a kid, I do think subconsciously it seeped in a little bit. Just the way that this is shot, like you said, the verisimilitude, but like. It's shot like an 80s action film. I mean, it's like anamorphic, lenses and this really dramatic lighting. It's not overlit and trying to feel bouncy, and it's got real dynamic, tense direction. I really feel like as a kid, you might not have been able to identify that, but you felt it. And that made everything feel all the more serious, and that's what made it ultimately all the more fun.
I agree, yeah.
This is kind of an interesting choice to split them up, to have Chunk left behind, and it makes it more fun to spend time with the Fratellis because Chunk makes it hilarious every time we go back to them. Yeah, I wonder if that wasn't as fun for him, though, shooting it.
For Jeff Cohen, you mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think he was having fun.
I think so, but it'd be fun, like crawling through tunnels with all your buddies, and he kind of, I hadn't really thought about it, but he kind of misses out on a lot of that.
He does. Well, it's definitely something kids would say, which is, hey, you go by yourself and do this.
Yeah.
Right? You're slightly older, you'd be like, no, somebody come with me.
Right. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So you can see a version where it's like Mouth and Chunk go off and do this, and you get like their banter.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's much funnier when it's Chunk on his own, and we get the great, his confession scene.
Hilarious. Yeah.
I think the first time, like, I remember people talking about this movie in the 80s, but if I remember, I read, it was either Mad Magazine or Cracked. It was the Goofies.
That's funny.
So I read the parody before I saw the movie.
Yeah.
And then, there was a video game in the late 80s called The Goonies 2.
I was going to bring that up, yeah.
And so I saw the ad for that, and I was like, oh, I guess there's 2 Goonies movies. I had no idea, And I didn't realize until later that, no, they just made the game, and I don't even know what the game is about. Presumably it's a sequel.
Yeah, I don't remember. I remember it being difficult, or at least it was for me.
Okay.
And so it was when I used to like rage quit, kind of a thing.
Was it like Top Gun trying to land the plane on the aircraft carrier?
I don't know. It just like I was really into like racing games and Mario and all that kind of stuff, and it just I think it was like not open world, but there was a lot of exploration, and I would just sort of get frustrated, always bumping into bad guys and stuff. But I do remember it was it was kind of confusing because it was called Goonies 2, and I think there's a mermaid on the cover or something.
Interesting.
And it being like, well, what's this? I mean, is there another movie? Is this a different story? Like.
But you don't remember whether there was a story or whatever?
Not really. I probably never made it very far. I love this, but I hate nature. And see, this is such like an interesting dynamic shot, right? We get this low angle thing. We got the fog blowing in the background. We got this rear view mirror that's not lit up.
Reveal.
Yep, exactly. Click on the interior light, reveal bad guy. And then he goes into that like Jewish prayer. You know what I'm saying? Like this is like a director with a vision.
Yep.
It's so great.
See, Robert Davi, there's another guy who, as long as people needed bad guys in movies, that guy's phone is always going to be ringing.
Oh, he's great. Even this, like, I love this framing here, right? He's singing in the foreground, and we've got background. He's like, like getting put out of focus, being shoved into the back of the trunk. It's so hilarious. There's like a style. This movie has a style. And then he's reunited with the Stiff.
Naturally. Yeah. So Martha Plimpton, she's the daughter of Keith Carradine.
I did. Well, I learned that this morning.
Yeah, I had no idea. I was like,
I didn't either.
I love Keith Carradine. He's a great actor. He's a great character actor.
Yeah.
And I guess she dated River Phoenix.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah. Sorry, you were saying?
No. This whole pipes thing. So we used to have this taped off of TV, and they cut this scene.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. This is one of the scenes I had read that Spielberg directed.
That I did read. Yeah.
It's interesting. I mean, you kind of don't lose anything from this.
No, I would agree. It feels somewhat incongruous, right? Tonally.
Yeah. Every now and then, that's the thing that I didn't remember till I watched this as an older person. for as much as the movie takes things seriously, there are occasional Looney Tunes moments.
Right.
Even what they add sort of like a wink, kind of sound when one of the Fratellis falls later. And
yeah, like this, you can lose it. I mean, granted, Troy getting blasted up there, that's pretty funny.
Which is funny, though, because it's one of those things as a kid, you're like, he's on the toilet, but his pants are on. I mean, obviously, because we're going to see his full body as he gets blasted with water. But it's like, it's just, I don't know.
I love that he's reading Guns and Ammo, right? That's like pretty good character coding. Like, yeah, this guy's a douchebag.
Quite a stunt, though. Well, anyway, so I guess this is where the whole zoo release the gorillas on accident thing was.
Yeah, you definitely didn't need that at all.
Okay, so I see. Well, I was reading about some of the other rooms and things they were supposed to encounter that they cut, and it always led to something. So, I mean, to be fair, this does blast through that wall. But I think in the TV version, I probably didn't question how they got into the next room. But yeah, this is kind of an intense little scene, right? We got like a blender, and she's even demonstrating putting a tomato in there, which looks kind of fleshy and bloody, and them sticking a 10-year-old child's hand into a activated blender. It's pretty intense.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I was like, that's frightening.
Yeah. But then, of course, Cohen completely like turns this into a hilarious, unforgettable moment in the movie. Tell us everything. Spill it, kid. So he starts confessing to all the horrible things he's done as a kid.
It's so funny. Yeah, and he's just making this stuff up. It's great.
Oh, this kid is so talented. I'm surprised we didn't see him in more movies, even just as a kid.
Yeah, but again, I'm like, how do you top this character?
That's true. I mean, that's the thing, right? I mean, this is just so suited to what he is great at.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be kind of tough. Anne Ramsey, we haven't mentioned her yet. Mm-hmm. I mean, she was a real staple, and sadly, she passed away in 1988.
Yeah.
But she was,
around the same time as John Matusik, right? Didn't he die right around then?
Oh, did he? I don't have the year, but yeah, I knew. Oh, yeah, he was like 89, I want to say.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, she was in all sorts of sitcoms, Wonder Woman.
Throw Mama from the Train.
She was nominated for an Oscar for Throw Mama from the Train.
Yeah.
And I didn't know this, but she has a very distinctive way of speaking, like a little slurred speech, in that she had to have part of her tongue removed in 1984 from esophageal cancer, which is kind of interesting. Like, that's sort of a weird trademark, honestly, that I know of her, from these movies.
And what was she had like throat cancer? I think that's why she passed away, right?
Yeah, then the cancer returned in 1988. But I mean, she's so perfect and menacing and fun at the same time. Slapping her kids on the heads. I was also reading that. So now we're looking at. They've discovered Chester Copperpot, his skeleton, and I was reading that some of these skeletons are real, and I was like,
"Yikes,
'80s, man." Right. 80s. Do you remember that Poltergeist was like that too? That when the woman's in the pool and all the skeletons are coming up. Later, she found out that those were real skeletons that they bought. And you're like, "Good Lord."
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I mean, can you imagine? Say you donate your bones or something like that, and then you end up being featured in a movie. Playing Chester Copperpot.
Yeah, that's a no from me.
Yeah, it's kind of twisted.
I don't like that one bit, Brian.
No. I remember this, the baseball card. Lou Gehrig. Oh, and then this is where they find the dynamite, right? Hey, look, candles. I love Mouth freaking out here too. He's kind of whimpering, and Brand is wiping the skeleton off of his hands onto Mouth's jacket. It's kind of interesting. This poster is pretty iconic.
Yeah,
and of
Drew
course,
Struzan.
I was going to say 80s iconic. Who else? Drew Struzan.
That's right.
And Had you read this? I thought this was interesting. So it features all of them dangling. Obviously, the further they go down, they get smaller and smaller. So he created a different version where each of them was at the top.
Oh, interesting.
So there was, I don't know, however kids, 5, 6, or however many there are. He had a version where he changed the orders. So when it was featured in the newspaper, they could change it so each kid could have a moment where they could open the paper, see the poster, and they'd be the one at the top.
What a guy.
Right? In like the closest view. I thought that was very cool.
That's very nice.
Yeah. I love these like booby traps too. See, that's the other thing too. I remember we were watching Uncharted recently, right, with Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg, and I was like, it feels like they're on a stage. Like there's dirt everywhere, but they don't feel dirty.
Right.
And you watch this, and obviously this is a stage, but like this feels like they're rolling around in dirt. And like when that rope, that pendulum blade thing is swinging and cutting that rope, that looks like that rope's been there for 80 years,
right?
You know, or whatever it is.
I think that's really the thing, right? Like, I mean, the budget for this was relatively small.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, it doesn't look like it's an extravagant thing, right? But there is a tactility to it.
Totally. Yeah, exactly.
And you just appreciate that, you know?
Yeah. Just so many like lines from this. I think God.
I mean,
put
19 million
for a reason.
19 million they spent on this.
19 million. Wow. And you know, it did. I looked it up. 63 million in the U.S., 125 worldwide.
So, you know, kind of a disappointment domestically.
But you know what's interesting? It was number 9. The number 9 highest grossing movie in 1985.
Yeah, I think it did well relative to its budget, but I think probably having that Spielberg name, they expected a little bit more juice.
Yeah, that could be. But
I mean, my only point in bringing that up is like, look, I mean, this movie has had a 40-year afterlife, so nobody can say they have not made their money back on this, you know.
I was literally had that thought where if they spent someone in 1984 was like, we'll spend 19 million on this, and it's been paying off.
Yeah.
For 40 years.
Yeah, exactly. You
know? But just as long as you brought it up, I have the top 10 box office here of 1985. And I think it's kind of interesting. Obviously, number 1 is Back to the Future, 210 million. But this, I'm just going to rattle them off real quick. It's Back to the Future, Rambo, First Blood, Part 2, Rocky 4, Color Purple, interesting, 4, Out of Africa, Cocoon, Jewel of the Nile, Witness, The Goonies, and Spies Like Us. And it's interesting for, again, like so many iconic movies coming out of the 80s. It's interesting how many of the movies, top 10 movies in 1985, kind of haven't lived on in the culture. Or so like Spies Like Us.
Right.
Witness weirdly is like a little not thought about a ton for
despite Harrison Ford getting a Best Actor nomination,
and it's a great film.
It is.
Jewel of the Nile, forgotten sequel to Romancing the Stone. Cocoon, right. You can't even watch that legally in 2025. It's hard to access. You know what I mean?
Cocoon or the second one?
It's Cocoon.
Really? Okay.
First one, yeah. So. You know, it's kind of interesting. I mean, there's certain ones, Back to the Future, Rambo 2, Rocky 4, Goonies.
Here's what I think is interesting. If you look at the movies that made the most money in 1985, the number 2 of 1985 was a 1984 movie, which is Beverly Hills Cop. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. Oh, right. Sure. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Like that tells you how movies had a much longer shelf life back then.
I remember because many years ago going down rabbit holes just with Back to the Future and seeing that, yeah, it was playing in theaters almost for a year.
Amazing.
Yeah. I love, this is a great sort of turn or twist here, right? Where they're looking for treasure.
Mm-hmm.
They see this waterfall, walk through it, and then they see a cave filled with coins.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, hey, we found it. But then there's the whole sort of twist, you know, where the mouth is like, hey, it's Martin Sheen. Which, of course, JFK. And then you're like, oh, it's just a wishing well. Like there's something sort of magical about it. But then it's like, oh, it's not the thing we thought.
Right. Well, and what I like is a couple things, right? It allows you to have a cross the threshold moment, where like we can get out here, or we can
Exactly.
keep going, right? And then I love Mouth's moment here where he's like, yeah, where they're like, no, these are other people's wishes, we can't take them. He's like, well, this is my wish, I didn't get my wish, I'm taking it back.
Mm-hmm.
And the wish is that we want to keep the Goondocks.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yep. And I do love the sentiment here.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, yeah, there we see Mikey and Data here swapping coins. Oh, give me this, give me that, and she's like, no, this is can't. Like people threw this in here with like,
Yeah,
this doesn't belong to you.
exactly.
I really love that. And then yeah, it's a great, powerful, emotional way to drive home the stakes of why they would feel compelled to do this, but also realistically why some of them would want to leave. Like, all right, we made it. Now we're at the bottom of Wishing Well. How much further can this go? I'm out. But then, of course, Mikey gets his iconic speech. This is our time down here. Goonies never say die.
Right. Yeah, that's great.
I love how the Fratellis are getting endeared to Chunk through all his like
it's so funny
bad stories. And then I was just going through trivia stuff, but I guess, when Mouth says, hey, it's Martin Sheen, it's because he had just played John F. Kennedy on an NBC TV miniseries in 1983.
And he would never play a president again.
Yeah. He's like douchey guys at the well.
That's
I just love
the
the
funny thing.
Yeah.
They're like out of some other movie,
Right. I just love, it's like, hey, you make it with Andy? He's just like flipping a coin at the old Wishing Well. That's hilarious, though. Throwing the coin down and it flipping back into his hand.
Yep. So let me ask you something. You're down in that well. Do you take the chance to get out, or do you keep going?
Look, I would love to say that I would keep going, but if this was real life, this might seem like an opportunity. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe that's
No, I'd
40s Brian talking.
There's definitely that. I look at these kids and they're getting tumbled around in this underground, and all I'm feeling is my backache. I'm feeling my sciatica.
Or I'm like, how much bacteria is in this water?
There's that also.
Yeah. Did you ever do that? Like, I mean, I'm curious. I mean, did you go out on your bike and ride till the streetlights came on and that whole thing?
Living in Saudi Arabia, we weren't able to do that a ton, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when we visited, I have very distinct memories of during the summer of '87. We were visiting Edmonton, and I learned how to ride a bike that summer. I taught myself, and then we would just go out exploring.
Yep.
And there's nothing like it, man. There's nothing like being 8, and just let's see what's out there.
Yep.
And honestly, you don't even have to go like freaking find a sunken pirate ship. You ride your bike to the shopping mall, and that's exciting because you got there by yourself.
100%. That's exactly it. It's funny. I see this come up on Reddit a lot, where younger people will be like, did kids really, like asking older people, did you really just get to ride your bikes till the streetlights came on? Is that like just a thing, like walking to school uphill in the snow? Is that like your version of that? And just something you're sort of making up or exaggerating? And people are like, no, literally. I mean, we just had to be home by dinner time or when it was dark. But someone pointed out, and I thought this was a good point, but there were boundaries. I remember my mom was like, you can't go past Roosevelt and President and you road, and you can, but that did allow for me to get to a video store, that allowed for me to get to a drugstore.
Right.
And there was something, it's so funny. Like now I'd be like, oh, I got to get in my car and drive to the drugstore to go do, it's like a chore. But when you're a kid, you go on your bike, you go in there and you had like a couple dollars and you could buy ice cream. And like it felt like you were doing something older and adventurous.
I mean, I remember, the summer between my, junior high and high school, I had a bike and I would ride it to, where my parents' house was
Mm-hmm.
in relation to like Stratford Square and Toys R Us and all that. It's like a 5-minute car ride.
Right.
But I would ride my bike all the way down Army Trail Road.
Yeah.
And it was like the greatest feeling in the world because you felt independent,
Mm-hmm. I mean, here we go. We got to call it out. It's our time. It's our time down here.
I know. Don't ride up Troy's bucket, guys. Come on. And Mikey gets to kiss Andy. See that? That's because they kept going.
Any 13-year-old boy's dream come true.
I know. By the way, Carrie Green, I really like her in this. It's a shame she basically stopped acting shortly after this movie came out.
Yeah, the only other thing I can think about is with her in it is Lucas. Do you remember that?
Yeah, that's right.
Corey Haim. Speaking of the Corys, Corey Haim movie where he joins the football team, because that was filmed in the Chicago suburbs, so it was kind of like a local classic, I think. When we were growing up.
Lucas is a good movie.
Yeah, it's so good here. Andy, you Goonie.
See, you know what I love about that is that for Troy and his ilk, that's an insult.
Yes,
but for them, that's a badge of honor.
Right,
They're proud to be Goonies.
Well, it's funny. I actually Googled before we started this, are the Goondocks real?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is that a thing? Is that a term that I'm not aware of? And I don't know that it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of interesting. I mean, you could just say they live by the docks.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe they had the name and they worked backwards, being like...
I think so, because I think it is a great title, because it's a title that kind of makes you say, well, what is a Goonie,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and so then instead of just saying that they live by the docks and they're going to tear down the houses by the docks, it's they live by the Goondocks. And I don't know, maybe someone can write in and tell me I'm wrong, but I don't. When I Googled it, all Goonies stuff came up,
right?
Instead of an actual.
See, I'm wondering how many parents accidentally got their kids Ghoulies instead of Goonies.
Oh no, yeah.
And you had a bunch of horrified children.
Yeah. Well, that would be sort of ironic, right? Because that was probably a riff on Gremlins.
That's right. Yeah.
Gremlins knockoff years later.
R-rated Gremlins.
Yeah.
Yeah. As soon as I'm in any joint where there's active, not active, but there are a bunch of skeletons.
I know, right?
I turn around. I'll be like, "See you later."
I know. Well, I gotta say though, I was in Italy and I had the chance to go into like beneath some churches, catacomby kind of things, and a bunch of people didn't want to go, but I was like, "No, yeah, I'm going. I gotta do this." And it's funny because it was very much like, yeah, I kind of want to feel like Indiana Jones or like a Goonie or something. You know what I mean? And just sort of walk through something that's really old, knowing that people were there a long time ago, and there may be people sort of buried there in bones. And I don't think if I hadn't grown up on these movies, I don't think I would have had that impulse.
Sure, well, there is something intrinsic, our need to explore, right?
Mm-hmm.
I often, my YouTube algorithm is currently stuck in videos of spelunking gone horribly wrong. And so this is sort of, it's like, you won't believe what happened when he went into the hole he shouldn't have gone into. And I'm like, well, obviously I have to watch that,
Actually, wait, you showed me that one about the guy who went in that really, really, really narrow area, right? And then he got stuck upside down.
Yeah, well, that's 80% of these videos. But I think the one you're thinking about is the Nutty Putty Cave.
Okay. Oh, that was horrifying.
Oh yeah, this poor fella was he was essentially upside down for more than a day, whatever it was. But our bodies are not meant to sustain almost entirely upside down, and he passed away. It's a really sad story, but there is this element of like, bro, just don't go in there, man. Like,
I know.
Like, it's like, no, I gotta explore, and I'm like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
Some of these stories are really horrifying. Some of them, like that guy, it was just a wrong turn that went awry. Mm-hmm. But then there's stories of these people who are like, well, what are you doing?
Yeah,
People who
yeah.
are like, oh, I don't have any ropes and gear or appropriate clothing. Let me go do the straight drop into the water and see how that goes.
See, now these rooms, watching them right now, and they got this little booby trap going off. Like these
Yeah.
are rooms. I can deal with a room.
Yeah, there you go.
You know?
Exactly.
Yeah, but the moment it gets tight, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't see the oh, we gotta surmount this challenge, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Now the physics here sort of lose me with Data's pincers of peril or whatever those are.
Pinchers of power.
Yeah, I'm not sure that would work.
I do. Well, we haven't even acknowledged like his gadgets. He loves James Bond and he loves gadgets, and it's like a
Yeah.
fun. What a fun character,
I agree.
right? But I feel like they land it just right, where he doesn't have things that are well. Actually, it goes against what you just said, but the idea of him having like
These are about as outlandish as it gets, where you're like, I don't think that would work.
no. I mean, the thing earlier where he has like little suction cup and
Mhm.
string, and it can pull him from point A to point B is one thing.
Right.
And yeah, this is about the line where you have like the what do you call it? The chattering teeth.
And
Attached
the
to a
spring, like neither of those things would hold the way he needs them to.
Yeah. We have to call this out, right? So Chunk obviously tells tall tales, and now he's calling the cops, trying to say, there's Fratellis and they're after my friends, and you got to get over here. And the guy's like, oh, sure. Another one of your stories, like those creatures, who throw water on them. And
so funny.
Referencing the gremlins from 1 year earlier.
That's right. And it's extra appropriate because there's a scene just like this in Gremlins. Where
Yeah.
Right, with Jonathan Banks, and they're trying to convince them.
Yeah. Well, I want to call it too earlier a moment that happened while we were talking, where we have Chunk bonding with Sloth.
Yeah.
And they have the Baby Ruth candy bar, and it's such a weird moment, but like weirdly sweet, where they're like sharing it, and they have this really funny wordless moment that they share where it's like huh? and then Sloth's like, here, you take a bite, and Chunk's like, me, okay, like it's so hilarious.
I think the genius of it is only among the Goonies, only Chunk would treat Sloth like that initially. He wouldn't.
That's a good point.
Right.
That's a really good point. I like that. Yeah. I don't know if I've ever really thought about it, but you feel it. That's so correct.
Right.
This was cut out of my version when I was a kid because it deals with the pipes. But this is kind of a funny, almost like Simpson-y moment where the pipes are going haywire. So Sloth shoves them up. And then you hear someone, like, it causes a car crash. You hear a woman scream, and then you hear a cop car all in a matter of seconds. Sloth's like, uh-oh. But yeah, their journey is so funny.
Yeah, so I think separating that, I think story wise it absolutely makes sense that Chunk has to be on his own in order for the Sloth relationship to happen.
Sure.
Boy.
Yeah. I mean, and here's the thing, right? So yeah, now we have Mikey and Andy in silhouette, and she thinks he's Brand, and so she's kissing him. And I'm sure, as a 13-year-old, it'd be like, wow, wouldn't that be cool if like some, 16-year-old cheerleader kissed me? Like it plays into so many like childlike things,
Yeah.
I think I read somewhere that Spielberg directed this too.
I could see that.
Yeah. I think Aston said that. Which is kind of interesting. I mean, Richard Donner being who he is, allowing someone to come in and not just give suggestions, but be like, I'll handle this.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, I think my sense is that Donner appreciated having Spielberg as sort of a kid wrangler. Because Spielberg really does just have a skill when it comes to dealing with kids, right? I mean,
totally.
I think when you look at how he worked with Henry Thomas and Drew Barrymore and stuff, and you can imagine Donner being entirely appreciative of that,
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I have something here. It says, Sean Astin, in his book There and Back Again, said that Donner and Spielberg were like co-directors.
Mm-hmm.
He said we'd all hug Dick and climb all over him like he was Santa Claus. That's how they treated him. And he said then sometimes Steven would come in and direct things like the kiss and the scene at the wishing well. He says he was really quiet. He'd flick a finger and people would set stuff up.
Man, how fascinating.
Yeah, right? Not exactly what I imagine.
Right, yeah.
That's such a great reveal there. Them going through that opening, and then you pull back and it's a skull. And I saw Sean Astin talking about that, and this was another set piece that they ended up not shooting, where that skull was going to fill up with water and be like rising toward a ceiling. And then eventually there was like a plug at the bottom, and they pulled the plug out, and you can kind of see why it's not necessary. It doesn't really get them from A to B.
Yeah, I can see its visual appeal for sure, but
I mean, this is knowing that there could have been something there, but seeing what we're seeing instead, where it's them in a hurry going through that thing, and then we just go straight to the Fratellis on their tail. It's really moving.
That's right. Yeah, it gives you what you need.
Yeah.
By the way, we talked right past it, but I love the gag about the the boys' room is there and the girls' room is there, and Brand's like, oh, I'm going to the men's room, and then all the other kids are like, yeah, we want to go to the men's room too. I love that. It's so funny.
Yeah, it's really good.
Because Brand's the cool older brother, you know?
Right.
See, like the slick shoes, like I can co-sign the slick shoes.
Totally.
I can go along with that, and you know, even the boxing glove thing or whatever, but yeah.
The boxing, it is kind of funny that he has like a coiled up tightly boxing glove under his coat this whole time.
Somehow that's under.
He's just like, you never know, as he's locking it into place.
You may need it.
But yeah, this is one of those moments where, you know, there's really, you know, they got a gun. They're pointing a gun at kids. But then they like slip on the log and land on their groins and they're like, oh, mommy. You know, like it's like one of like a handful of moments you kind of forget about where it does get like kind
of. Which we didn't talk about this on the regular show, but you said that in Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, when the Gabriel character exits, if he said that would have increased it by a letter grade for you.
Well, we were on a phone call. It wasn't even like for the show, and I was just saying, yeah, like when he gets ejected from the plane and he hits the back fin of the plane, and then he falls off. It's kind of quick. I was like, I think what really put it over the edge is if he hit it and he had a beat where he went, "Oh my pee-pee," and then fell off. Letter grade. I'm sure people who didn't just recently watch this movie are probably like, what? I don't even remember. Yeah, what are they talking about? And why are they picking on Goonies right now for a cartoonish moment of like a groin shot when you're making like a stupid joke like that?
Anyways.
Yeah. See, this is good. This is good. Like you want to come up with puzzles and things for them. I love this. I love that it's, this is a horrifying image. I mean, this pipe organ made of human bones.
Right.
And then you've got these notes on the back, which is great because that could transcend time. It doesn't need to be a language. It doesn't need to be whatever.
Yeah.
And then it's very relatable with like a kid who's taking piano lessons. Like, oh, I can kind of do this, but I might not be an expert at it, which adds to the tension, right?
Well, and what I also like is you have these puzzles that give everyone some business.
Yes, right.
Like if Andy's not with them, the journey ends here.
Right, and Mouth speaks Spanish,
exactly.
Which is set up at the beginning, yeah.
Yeah, so I like that aspect of it too, that everyone is essential.
Mm-hmm. And I'm just, admiring again, like thinking of Uncharted again, where everyone looks like they just came from lunch and, they didn't even bother to put fake dust on their faces, but look, like they all look sweaty here,
right?
And like dingy, and you can't even really see what's in the background. The smoke looks like something I wouldn't want to breathe in, coming out of the pipes, right? Like all the atmosphere here, it
feels like we're talking about a bygone era. Like there was just an aesthetic sensibility that seems to have been just forgotten or lost.
And I think that's why this movie is still talked about. And I've mentioned this before, being a writer and pitching, I'm mostly in the kid space, so I'll go in and I'll pitch sort of kid shows. I haven't been in one pitch meeting or development meeting where the Goonies isn't referenced. Not
Oh, that's
one.
interesting.
Yeah, because it's the bar, it's the gold standard. And so it kind of makes you wonder why people don't do this thing that we're like gushing over right now. And maybe it's because when you're doing it, you're thinking about so many things, you're not thinking about these extra little details, and that's why Dick Donner's Dick Donner. I don't know.
Yeah, that's right.
But anyway, like it's so, I love this. It's not even just trying to get the notes right, but if you don't get them right, the ground falls away. I don't understand the physics of that, but it, like the ground disappears beneath you.
Well, what I like is that Willie was kind enough to include chances for you to screw up. It's like the connections game in the New York Times. Like
Right.
you have a couple times.
That's hilarious. Right.
It's like, well, you're human. You might make a mistake. Don't make too many.
Right. It's not like you get it or you don't. It's like, we will give them 3 tries.
Exactly. That's very courteous of One-Eyed Willie. That's all I'm saying.
At the planning meeting with him and the pirates. Can you imagine they were like sitting around like a conference table coming up with ideas for booby traps and just like, I have an idea. We have a surplus of bones. If anybody has any wild ideas, and someone's like, pipe organ. It's a good looking effect, though, isn't it?
It is.
About it, that overhead shot there, where you see like a abyss beneath them, basically.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah. That's the thing too, where I've noticed people are smoking in movies again, which is kind of interesting, because it always used to feel, that I don't know if it's the MPAA or who, but they came down on that for a while, right?
Right. It kind of got phased out.
Kind of got phased out. So then it felt weird when you watched an older movie and someone was smoking. You're like, oh, I'm watching something from 1984. Likewise, like you don't see guns pointed at kids very often. That seems like a very 80s move. I mean, even Spielberg winced at it for a second, right? When E.T.
I was about to say, I'm surprised he didn't CGI walkie-talkies into the Fratelli's hands in this movie.
Yeah, but there's, again, when you're a kid, there's something kind of cool about it, because then it feels like real danger, I think.
I think, and you're referring to, of course, when he re-released E.T. in 2002, and they did the CGI with the taking out the rifles and putting the walkies.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember even back then being like, you're fixing a problem that nobody had.
Yeah.
Right. Nobody was like, oh, don't do, you know what I mean?
I don't think they ever do point them at the kids too, to be fair. Like they certainly are.
No, they don't.
They have them in their hands.
And E.T. for sure they don't. No, they don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like weird, right? Like it's like why are you questioning your instinct?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Come on, Steven.
So this is kind of like a story that gets told a lot, but that pirate ship was really built, and it was in like stage 16 over at Warner Brothers, which if you visit there, if you go take the tour, you can see, and it's enormous, and it's the biggest stage on the lot.
The
I think
set
it's the
is
biggest
enormous,
stage.
not the ship isn't there anymore.
Well, I'm sorry, the stage itself is enormous, and that's where they fit Gotham Plaza for Batman Returns, the whole thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, they filled it with water, built a full-size pirate ship in there, and the story goes that they were trying to withhold it from the kids because they wanted to get their genuine reaction seeing it for the first time.
Yeah.
And according to Josh Brolin, they did that and they revealed it to the kids, but they all swore like a lot. And they're like, no. So they had to shoot it again and have them being like, oh, wow.
And by the way, not just run of the mill swear, not like the S word or the F word, but it was like really graphic stuff about stuff they wanted to do to other people's relatives. It got very off color very quickly.
Very out of hand.
Parents got involved. Lawyers were called. It was,
Right. Burned the footage.
Yeah, Richard Donner talked about how once they were done filming, he was trying to convince some studio or somebody to buy the boat to preserve this amazing set. And you say, God, imagine if this entire boat still existed, somebody would be making money off of it to this day.
Oh, I mean, yeah. I mean, obviously they wouldn't know at the time, but in Astoria alone, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that being some sort of mecca for fans, they could do that, but it doesn't even have to be like,
Right.
oh, this is the ship from the Goonies.
No,
It's just a pirate
just
ship you can
for
walk on.
anything. Exactly.
Yeah. I love Data just losing it here.
It's Data. Thank you very much.
Data, sorry. But I just love like this moment. I mean, again,
It's very funny.
They spend some time with him just like, oh, I've had it. Like, you know, tired of falling. Nobody appreciates me.
He reminds me of Butters, like when Butters gets pissed off.
Yes, that's exactly the energy.
Butters from South Park, by the way, for those people listening.
No, it's great. And I love the horrifying thing that Mikey and Andy find up there, that pirate, the bones are like, oh, look at this. And then the head turns and there's two blades sticking out of each of its eye sockets.
Ugh,
it's great.
Man.
It's great. I do wonder how much, there was a scene earlier I didn't comment on, but when Steph and Andy, Brand is standing between them, and he puts his head on Steph's shoulder, and she's like, huh? Yeah. And he goes, oh, sorry. And then he puts it on Andy's. I was like, is that in the script? Or is that like they're just riffing? They're just...
Oh, that's interesting.
Because then after that, he says something about like, oh, why couldn't I have had a sister? And I was like, I wonder if they just put the camera on them and they're like, just do something.
I don't doubt it, because these are just very talented kids, right?
Yeah, they have a great energy, and but that's what I love about it, is it feels like a very unscripted moment. And I think that is this movie with all the things that are amazing scripted. There's so many unscripted things, like Data freaking out there. I'm sure that was probably him riffing a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's what gives this movie its buzz,
Yeah. Donner was always very good at that. That's something that I always appreciated about his Superman movie, is the scenes in the Daily Planet where it just feels like kind of what you're saying. They just point at the camera at these actors and just let them play in character.
Totally.
And there's controlled chaos in there,
Controlled chaos. Yeah. Yeah. This is great. I mean, this is again, like it was a different era, but just to have the patience, to trust the audience, that even as kids, they wouldn't be like, okay, this is a slow scene where Mikey goes in and he talks to One-Eyed Willie and it's quiet for like a minute and a half. But it's weirdly touching.
It is. Well, that's what's so great about it, right? Like, you realize Mikey is the one who believed.
Mm-hmm.
And right, like, he's the one who's worthy of having made it this far.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that Willie was like asthmatic too, and they're like connected,
right?
And I love how Mikey he kind of starts crying here. It's great. You just see the little tear,
Yeah, talking about how great Sean Astin is. I mean, this is so sincere.
Yeah,
the tears in his eyes, and this is such a great moment, because even as a kid, you're kind of wondering like, what's under that eye patch? When they show it, I mean, I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but like having the skull be like filled in back there. But I love it. Yeah, he's earned this. And I never remember thinking this was corny as a kid. I was with Mikey. I thought this was sweet. This made sense to me as a kid.
100%.
Like, heartfelt. How long you guys been standing there? Long enough, Mikey.
That's enough. Great. I love that.
Yeah, it's very sweet. Oh, go ahead.
No, just I mean, the relationship between Brand and Mikey, I absolutely love it. And that typifies it for me.
I agree. I got to call out. There's a huge deleted scene.
Oh yeah. Go ahead.
In this area where I think this was confusing to a lot of kids, because this was not in the theatrical cut, but they would include this scene on the Disney Channel and on cable. So some people would be like, "Oh, the scene with the octopus," and other kids would be like, "What the heck are you talking about?" Yeah, but there is a scene with an octopus as they're approaching the boat. Steph thinks that Mouth is touching her or brushing her leg or trying to annoy her, and she keeps saying like, stop it, but it ends up it's the tentacle of an octopus that rises up behind her and puts its coils around some of the kids. And the way they get rid of it is Data shoves a Walkman in its mouth
And he's like, smile, you son of a...
Yes. Yeah.
Let's play.
That's right. It's good.
Cyndi Lauper starts playing.
Yeah, exactly. And then, I don't remember. I feel like it almost like dances away or something kind of goofy. But like, anyway, it goes away with music playing in its mouth. And that's filmed. That's in some TV edits. And Data kind of confusingly brings it up.
That's what's weird to me. Is
in the theatrical cut.
How do you leave that in? How do you leave in him referencing the octopus?
Yeah, so the reporters are being like, wait, what? So what happened? What did you discover? And like, it was the pirate ship and these counterfeiters are chasing us. And then Data says something about, and then this giant octopus, which of course makes sense in the extended version, but in the theatrical cut, it almost sounds like the kids are just lying about what they went through.
Yeah, my thought was like, you could have just ADR'd him saying something else. Just loop it in. Why? I can imagine the filmmakers being at wit's end and just wanting to lock picture, and, and twisting themselves in a knot to justify leaving that in.
Yeah. And as long as we're at it, well, now the Fratellis have caught up with them and are forcing the kids onto the deck of the boat. And there was I don't know if it was extra or if they changed it, but Data had an invention where it was called the Intimidator, and he inflated his whole body, inflated like a balloon.
Okay.
And as I was reading this, I was like, oh, that sounds too weird. But there's pictures of it. You can see pictures of it online.
Huh.
And so maybe they did think that this was a bridge too far or it didn't make any sense. I don't know if they took it out or if they replaced it, but instead we get his pinchers of power doing a nut shot to
this is very funny, those pearls.
Pants. Yeah, so now the Fratellis are taking all the jewels off the kids. Yeah, and Mouth has just a ton of stuff in his mouth. And like Ma Fratelli can't believe it. It just keeps coming.
I mean, that string of pearls was very long. That would have had to have been pretty far down his gullet. She would have been pulling up intestine with it.
Right. But yeah, it's really funny. I do wonder. I mean, now I'm just thinking about it. I mean, if that was a reshoot with the inflatable thing, it just seems like a lot of work to have to get back into this stage and bring. Well, maybe you didn't have to. Maybe just get a part of the ship and throw it in a corner somewhere, and you don't.
Yeah, I'm curious. I didn't pay attention to the shot in particular.
Yeah, this is one of those weird things. I like telling tales about the movies I had taped off of TV. And like, I'm used to the edited for I'm like, oh, this is where edited for television came up. And this is where it'd go to commercial. When she knocks Andy off and she says, 2 down, who's next? That's when it cut to commercial. I'm so used to it fading to black in that moment and going to commercials.
How funny. Yeah.
Well, here we go. Sloth and Chunk to save the day. Sorry, what were you saying?
I don't remember.
Oh, sorry.
No. It couldn't have been that important.
Captain Chunk. Because they were watching that Errol Flynn movie earlier.
Yeah, that's they do a good job setting it up.
Mm-hmm. And I guess some of the rousing adventure score in here is lifted directly from whatever movie it is they're watching, Captain Blood or something.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. This would be a cool thing to do, isn't it? Like just jump off a ship in the water. Like imagine being an actor. Like
that's part of why you want to be an actor is to do stuff like that.
Sorry, what were you gonna say?
No, I watched this with my daughter. She's 8 a couple days ago, and I love that she wasn't scared at all of Chunk. Oh, excuse me, of Sloth.
Mm-hmm.
She found him lovable.
Yeah, I love that.
And of course, we get the Superman theme appropriate.
Yep.
It is Richard Donner, of course.
Yep. Sloth ripping off his shirt, revealing the Superman logo, which is kind of funny. I mean, it feels like these filmmakers had fun being self-referential.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, going back to 1941 with Spielberg, that movie opens with a riff on Jaws, which was only like 4 years old or something at that point.
See, what I like is that Sloth's own family just treated him horribly.
Mm-hmm.
And, so he finds a surrogate family, just like the Goonies are their own kind of family.
Mm-hmm.
In the novel, you see that Sloth is actually adopted by Chunk's family.
I love that.
Yeah. So,
well, in the book, it says they even threw him a bar mitzvah.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, yeah, to be continued on that with them adopting Sloth. I was going to say, just for now, we get this moment here where Sloth, finally kind of confronts his mom, and it actually turns into like kind of a sad moment.
Yeah, right?
Where, I mean, she's obviously trying to like manipulate him a little bit here, his emotions, and like, oh, it's mama. Oh. And then he's remembering how she, I don't know, abused him, but certainly mistreated him when he was a kid. And it's kind of heavy.
Right?
You know what I mean?
That's a tricky thing, because it's like you wonder how they have to think about like how heavy should a movie like this get when it comes to stuff like this,
Yeah.
And you can imagine there was a version of this where Sloth dies.
Sure. I'm sure it's considered, yeah.
Right, as they're escaping. And it's like, yeah, our kid's going to be okay with that? Probably. It's like all the stuff they have to think about,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, just I don't know. I mean, you just push this too far and it's like really dark. But just it's her singing Rock Goodbye Baby, Cradle Will Fall. And that's what triggers a memory for him of being dropped. It's like, wow.
It's dark.
Pretty dark. So he throws his mom overboard.
Throw mama from the boat.
Throw away. There you go. I'm trying to remember, how does the... Well, apparently, by the way, Robert Davi and... or Davi? Davi. And Joey Pants really didn't get along in real life.
Is that right? Well, maybe initially. I mean, I would assume they're pretty chill now.
Oh, I'm sure. But yeah, apparently, according to... I want to say it was Pantoliano said it. Like, they did actually bicker a lot. And it's kind of funny. I mean, you see it there on screen.
That fits with the characters, at least.
Yeah. Apparently, even when they were... like rehearsing or auditioning or whatever it was, they were kind of going back and forth at one another.
If you remember, initially the role of Leo Getz, they wanted a Joey Pants for it.
I can see it,
right? And so you can Richard Donner, obviously having worked with him already.
I understand the energy. I mean, I think they made the right choice with Pesci.
Joe
There's
Pesci.
like a sweetness, an extra sweetness that comes with Pesci, but. I love it. I don't know. I always kind of like this. Thank you, Willie. You made my day.
See, what I love is Willie's Gold, how Mikey, it's like he just knew. Don't touch me, right?
Yes, his respect.
Yeah.
For this person. Like, because he does say something like, I beat you. Like, I did it. I beat your traps. Mm-hmm. But there's still he's worthy. It wasn't about defeat. It was about being worthy, and they respect, like game recognized game, and that's what ended up saving the kids. And the Fratelli's not respecting that and trying to take Willie's gold is what could leave them trapped in this cave forever.
Well, and when you think about it, the various traps, like the thing that they did with Willie's gold, and then that ends up setting off whatever, all that's doing is setting the boat loose.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's what proves the Fratellis were unworthy, right? If they had stayed on the boat, it would be their boat.
Right.
Like they would be considered. It's out in the open water. It's their boat.
Mm-hmm.
But because Mikey has the gems, he salvaged them from that boat. So therefore, it's his boat.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So whatever's on the boat is his.
Right.
That's why he beat Willie. See,
I love it. This is kind of perfect.
See right here, you can imagine the version where Sloth dies.
I agree. Yeah, cave's collapsing. He's lifting a rock that the kids can't lift, so they can get out. And you can imagine the version, where he can't hold it any longer, and the rock falls on him.
Yeah.
I'm glad they didn't do that though.
No, exactly. Not for this movie, you know.
Sloth love Chunk. Oh my gosh. I mean,
It's
and that's the
great.
thing. You feel it. It's funny. I've seen this movie so many times in my life, but it was playing in a movie theater about a year ago.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, I've never seen it on a big screen. I really want to watch it. And I kind of wondered how it would play if I would just be like, oh yeah, I've seen this 100 times. But I found myself getting wrapped up in it all over again and laughing where I'm supposed to laugh and feeling the emotions where I'm supposed to feel them. And it's just, yeah.
There's something about the big screen experience, no matter how many times you've seen a movie.
Yes. Nothing like it. You always see things you missed before or hadn't, plot things where you're just so used to kind of listening to the movie, half listening to it because you've seen it so many times.
Oh, that's Dick Donner, by the way, right there on the right.
Yeah, him and his AD.
Yeah.
You catch so many more things and reappreciate it.
Yeah, what I always say is going to the movie theater is an active experience. It's not passive.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
The stuff with Data's parents is so sweet. I just absolutely love it.
Yeah. Well, I want to bring up Keith Walker here, who plays Mr. Walsh.
Mm-hmm.
So he had an untimely passing also, unfortunately.
Oh, really?
So I guess while he was up in Astoria filming, he kind of explored and got inspired by the place, and he wrote a screenplay about a boy and a whale called Free Willy.
Get out of here.
Yeah. And then Richard Donner executive produced it.
That's right. Wow.
I love that.
This is so random because yesterday morning, the intro for the Free Willy animated series came up on my YouTube. And I was like, there was a Free Willy animated series?
I didn't know that either.
I know. And then I went on this weird deep dive into the Free Willy franchise just yesterday, literally.
Oh, funny. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, see, I love the Data's dad. He's an inventor just like him, but it's this very sweet thing where he's just like, you're my best invention, he says to his son.
So sweet. Right? You can't hug a photograph. It's okay. You can't hug a photograph.
That's great. I love
You're my best invention. So sweet. Yeah. I guess it's a mixture. These parents, some of them are their actual parents.
Yeah. Jeff Cohen's parents. They play Chunk's parents,
which is great. And then some of it is crew. I think Andy's dad is maybe the DP or something.
Okay.
But I love that, Richard Donner really gives off that familial sort of vibe, right? Like when we make a movie together, we're family. I mean, you really feel that in the Lethal Weapon movies. That's like the vibe. Even you sense that behind the scenes, but even in the films themselves, we've talked about that. Like the police station film feels like they're all family with one another.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and
I love that. It seems to carry through all his movies.
Well, you really sense, all the kids. Even now that Richard Donner's passed away, but even when he was alive, they had such affinity. All the Goonies kids. And then the Superman actors who out of solidarity with him didn't want to come back without him. I mean, right. That really speaks to the general atmosphere he was able to foster on sets, Mm-hmm. And of course, Jeff Johns had told the story about how he got a job as Richard Donner's assistant. He calls up his office and he's like, "Hey, can I talk to Richard Donner?" And they put him on. And he's like, "Hey," and they talked for like an hour, and then he ends up becoming his assistant.
It's amazing.
I
love it. I love it. Now, what's fascinating about this ending here is this was not the original ending. Do you know the original ending?
I don't, actually.
So, basically they left and they go back to Mikey's house and they have to move. There's a moving truck and the maid is going through Mikey's clothes or whatever and finds the jewels. Okay. And so they find it at the house and all the families are there. And that's why I was saying about to be continued with the Sloth Chunk family thing. So time has passed and you see Sloth wearing a Hawaiian shirt and a sport coat. So it's like basically he lives now with Chunk and his family, which I think is amazing. But they realize oh, and then the gorillas pull up or whatever in the car, and then the cops
this is like the original ending of E.T. all over again, where we stick around after E.T. leaves and we see them in the house, and it's like, no, we don't need all that.
No, exactly. The energy's all wrong, and
Exactly,
and you can see this online. You can look this up. You can see all the gorilla stuff. You can see the original ending outside the house and Sloth in the sport coat. But
That's hilarious.
But this is brilliant. Like, no, let's end this now. Right? Like,
yeah,
they come out. I mean, it's kind of funny that the real estate guys are there with the contract at the beach,
No, but you know what though? You don't even think about it, honestly.
No, but all the families are there. They're literally exhaling from the adventure they just ended.
Yeah.
Maid finds the jewels. We get the ship coming out of the of Haystack Rock. It's the perfect decision.
It is. That too, I love how like you're like, come on, mouth, just translate it right.
Yeah, exactly. No pen, no sign.
See, again, maritime salvage. Since they took that off of the boat belongs to them.
Yeah, I was reading that. Yeah. Technically, they would get to keep this.
Yeah,
which is great. I love this too. This shot where he tears up the dad tears up the contract and throws it in the air, and then you can see this extra bit of confetti that someone, like some crew guy, is probably.
Yeah, you can tell.
But it works. Makes it so much better.
I think the fact that they've been talking about doing a sequel since like forever, right? Supposedly they're doing one now.
Yeah.
I think here's your sequel, right? Mikey has built a real estate empire based on the salvage from the boat.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's like the Troy family in this next one.
Oh, I wouldn't like that. But keep going.
We'll subvert expectations, right?
Well, you know what though? But yeah, he's got to have an arc.
Yeah, exactly.
To become a kid again.
Yeah, right? And we'll figure that out. Let's go with that. There.
My reaction to that is maybe why your idea is brilliant. I didn't want to feel that, but I'm going to enjoy the journey of seeing him rediscover the inner 13-year-old Mikey.
I just want that to watch the internet burn itself down. As I laugh maniacally.
By making him the villain?
Yeah. Oh, that'd be great.
And it ends with him winning.
I know.
And it's like, good enough for you. Directed by, who's the guy who's doing the Star Wars movie now? Did Free Guy?
Oh yeah. Was it Levy? Sean Levy?
Sean Levy, because we know it's going to be Sean Levy, right? So, I mean, now we're seeing the ship sail off into the sunset. Everybody wins. And I was reading this story. It's hilarious, where I guess the kids were really driving Richard Donner crazy. I'm sure he loved them, but also wanted to wring their necks to some degree, spending 12 hours plus a day with them every day. And so Spielberg then thought of a funny idea.
Yes, yeah.
Which was, he told the kids on the last several days, hey, just kind of keep your distance from Donner. We're going to have like a surprise for him, and we want to throw him off a little bit. And it was throwing Richard Donner off that the kids weren't being as loud and friendly with him. And he's like, oh, why are they going so cold to me? And what Spielberg was planning was wrap the movie. Richard Donner is going to go to Hawaii to his house to put his feet up and unwind from this and get away from the kids. And then he, take a little vacation before he goes into post. But the trick up Spielberg's sleeve was he flew all of the kids out to Dick Donner's house in Hawaii. So they were there waiting for him when he arrived. So the second he thought he was away and free from the kids, they were all like, hey, in his house.
He's like Mr. Wilson.
Exactly.
Hey, Mr. Donner.
And again, this is something you can see on YouTube. You can see the home video of this, and you can see him like, oh, no. Oh, wow. Oh, no. Kind of a thing. And so I guess they had a big barbecue, but then Spielberg had it arranged to fly the kids away after that night. right so after. Donner did actually get a vacation.
And a deserved one at that.
Absolutely.
He was just 2 years away from Lethal Weapon.
Wow, it's crazy.
That is nuts. It's a remarkable career. I've sung his praises many a time on our regular show, and I think he's an amazing director. And this film is an example of that, but also his entire filmography is an example of why he was such a great director, because he was able to just so gingerly step from one tone and one genre into the next.
Absolutely. But give it flair and sizzle, you know? Yeah. I wish there were more people I could count on my hands like that these days, you know, that you could sort of depend on them to go from thing to thing, knowing that they're going to bring that secret sauce.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I point to somebody like Ron Howard as an example of somebody like that, where it's like he does so many different genres, and it's always solid. It's always dependable.
Yeah, totally. He's very dependable.
Very dependable, and it's not something, you know, like I don't think there's a signature Ron Howard style, you know.
Yeah,
you know, and I think he's of the same school, you know, kind of the journeyman school.
Yeah, that's kind of true. I mean, well, they kind of in the same era, right? Where
same
they
era, and they both came
by the. Yeah.
They came up the same way, right? Because Donner started doing television in the golden age.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he did Twilight Zone, and meanwhile, Ron Howard, you know, was doing the Roger Corman stuff.
Right,
you know?
right.
And so similar energies, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But 40 years out, I think this is a movie that holds up. I don't know if it's cherished by modern generations, though. Like, that's genuinely, I have no idea.
Probably depends if your parents force you to sit down and watch it, and if maybe like you did with your kids, if it's at the right moment, then it'll probably hit. But I don't know if it's
my
hitting
kids
with
are
as many kids.
My kids are watching Stranger Things right now.
Mm-hmm.
They're working their way through it, and you know, Sean Astin shows up in that.
Yeah.
And so my daughter's like, Papa, Mikey's in Stranger Things, you know, which is very cool. I think in that regard, like, Stranger Things is part of this movie's legacy, you know?
Absolutely. 100%.
Like, you don't get Stranger Things without this. Now that we alluded to it earlier, I mean, they've been talking about a sequel for a long time. Supposedly there's one that's picking up steam right now. Do you think a sequel should happen?
Man, I mean, you and I, we say this a lot, where we're always hoping for the best version of something. Yeah. And I have to believe there could be a good version of that.
Yeah.
It's possible. I mean, Top Gun Maverick, right?
That's right.
The cynic inside of me feels like they probably won't do that version.
Right.
or they won't find the right person, or they just won't be able to nail this tone correctly.
Right.
So is it worth it? I don't know. I personally, I don't think it's a great idea. That's just my honest opinion.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I would agree with you. I think if there's anything that gets the gang back together, it would have to be something that they thought worthy. It's not like Josh Brolin needs to do one, you know?
Right.
It's not like any of them really need to do it. So that's what it always comes down to for me, is like, well, what's the thing that would get them back, you know?
Yeah, and I assume you'd have to, you know, you have to imagine this gang is going to be a group of adults and got their thing going on, and it's probably their kids going on some sort of adventure.
Right. So it'll come down to how likable are their kids and stuff.
Exactly. And I mean, this movie, in a way, is, I would say it's lightning in a bottle. I mean, they find the perfect cast that is so charming and so likable, and they get along and have this chemistry. You know, even when they're picking on each other, it's fun to watch.
Yeah.
It'd be really hard to do that all over again and have it work.
And the thing is that it's going to be another Girl Meets World situation where we watch it and we'll be like, well, I don't want to spend time with these kids. I want to see how Brand and Mikey are, you know, after this many years or whatever, you know, like, that's the stuff we want to see.
And then to your point earlier, though, do I want to see Mikey as like a dad who's too busy to pay attention to his kids? And, you know, like, that's right. I don't know, you know, but they've been talking about a sequel for years and years, and all the people.
If I were to place a bet, I would say we never get one. But
I was going to say this is a question they've been getting for ages.
Right.
But February 2025 was like the closest I think we've ever really gotten to it, where it's like, no, this is in active development. Steven Spielberg has said he'll produce it. Whether it happens, who knows? It could fall apart. But this feels like the closest it's ever been.
Let's see how well my comment ages, but I don't believe that movie is ever going to get made.
Yeah. I mean, you get Top Gun Maverick because Tom Cruise is still a bankable box office movie star.
That's right.
Right? Like this, there's a lot of moves they got to pull in this one to make it work. And
Yeah, I don't think the the title The Goonies it's not exactly Top Gun
right
in terms of getting people into the theater,
Yeah.
But that's a conversation to be picked up at some other time. If y'all listening have any thoughts on The Goonies or our thoughts on The Goonies, you can email us at moviefilmpodcast@gmail.com. You can also hit like on our Facebook page, facebook.com/moviefilmpodcast, and message us there. We also have a Patreon page, Brian.
Yes, we do. If you head over to patreon.com/moviefilmpodcast and hit subscribe for only $5 a month, the price of a cup of coffee, you'll find every commentary we've ever done and every episode we do moving forward absolutely ad-free. We always like to remind people, our free feed will always be available, but this is our way of providing what we believe is the most satisfying way to enjoy the show without any interruptions, without any ads. Plus, your subscription goes a long way in helping to support us and helping to sustain producing this show. So if you're interested and able, please head over to patreon.com/moviefilmpodcast and subscribe. We'd be very grateful.
There you go. And as always, if you like what we're doing, please go to Apple Podcasts and leave a review, leave a star rating. Every little bit helps. And if you're looking for me online, you can find me on social media at Zacky's Corner. That's ZAKIS Corner. You can also read my reviews at the San Francisco Chronicle and IGN and The Wrap. What about you, Brian?
You can find episodes I've written of Young Jedi Adventures streaming on Disney+. And you can believe that in a lot of our story breaks, the Goonies came up. So the influence lives on even in the Star Wars universe.
And with that, on behalf of my partner Brian Hall, my name is Zaki Hassan, and this has been our movie film commentary track for The Goonies. So never say die.